After all these years, animation icon Genndy Tartakovsky is finally letting his dogs out. And I do mean that he spent a long time trying to bring his passion project to life, as this was an idea that he had since 2008, meaning that this concept existed even before he joined Sony Pictures Animation to become the director of the first Hotel Transylvania.
It was 2008?
2008, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been an epic journey to get here. Can you tell us about Fix's origin story?
So the origin story came from, I have a group of high school friends that we're very close with. And like I'm sure everybody does, and your close friends from childhood make you laugh like nobody else can, right? And we make fun of each other, and I really love our dynamic. And I started to think about it around that time, that 2008 time. Can I take this dynamic of these characters, my friends, and make them into an adult animated comedy? Make the characters more exaggerated, right? So it's for everybody, not just for me, but make them special. And it's really like Seinfeld. You know, those are very specific characters that everybody thinks they're very funny. And at the time, there were also those Judd Apatow comedies like Knocked Up or 40-Year-Old Virgin, and I realized that he's doing the same thing. He's getting these actors who are all kind of friends, and they're just kind of, having stories with that.
He may have tried and failed many times to create a movie at Sony that doesn't involve an Adam Sandler vampire, but one project that he never gave up on was his R-rated dog comedy. It wasn't until in 2018 when it was revealed that Genndy got his wish and was ready to both write and direct Fixed. The only catch is that even if it was being made at Sony Animation, it was Warner Brothers who was planned to release it theatrically under their New Line Cinema banner. But after the movie was finished in 2023, of course, Warner Brothers was being Warner Brothers and had to drop the feature to save money. It did seem like it was going to be left in the development pound for a while, but it wasn't until Netflix stepped in to adopt the Poochie feature and gave the film that Nimona-like chance to be shown to the world, even if it's on streaming instead of the big screen. But the point is, it may have taken a whole lifetime in dog years, but we have finally reached the point that we now have an animation fan's dream movie. An original, fully 2D animated feature made for adults that was created by an acclaimed figure in the industry. Well, it was considered a dream, until the trailer was released. This is the ultimate crime against art! John Crispolucci just called from 1991 and politely asked you to stop shoplifting Ren and Stimpy's aura. Creator really showing his beast fetish shine through here. The people who are saying I'ma give this film a chance should be put on a list!
A spectacularly brutal waste of resources and potential. Like, holy shit! This director made Primal and Samurai Jack, mind you. We're just adding more nails in the coffin for big-budgeted 2D animated movies.
Seriously, the backlash that this film got on social media was intense. The rage was so bad that even Disney saw the reactions and said, "What the f*** did you do?" You'd think that the praise from K-pop demon hunters would carry on to Sony Animation's next Netflix movie, but I guess the love that some people have for that film isn't actually genuine, since they are okay with accusing the animators from the same studio of bestiality.
Listen, I'm just gonna go and say right now that I completely understand that this is not for everyone, and that the comedy that it presents, well, it may not necessarily be to your taste. If you don't enjoy raunchy jokes and you find them to be more repulsive than actually enjoyable, then you know what? That's perfectly fine. It's cool that you do have your own taste and that there are some things that you may not enjoy or that there are things that you do prefer. But just because this movie doesn't necessarily cater to your specific taste, or that it is not specifically catering to the specific style that you want to go and experience, that doesn't give you permission to go and let out your fury and flat out attack both the movie and the people behind it. And if I have to tell you to go and calm down on your hatred towards a Sony Pictures Animation movie, then maybe take that as a sign that you have to chill.
But what is it about this movie that's causing reactionaries to completely lose their temper? Now that the countdown begins for Bull's Balls, is the hate for this picture actually justified? Or does this movie have as much heart as it does hormones? Let's find out. The story. What Fix does to make itself stand out from all the other Talking Pets movies is not just how it's made for an adult audience, but also it's with its nuts, both in the way that it describes the tone and what the film is all about. The film looks into the moment that all male domestic dogs fear the most, when they have to go and say goodbye to their testicles. And Bull's time was next, but he's not ready to split with his pair. So with the help of his friends, the dog goes out to the big city to make the most out of his life and his balls.
We're gonna go out there and suck every bit of fun out of those balls before you lose them.
We're all gonna suck your balls.
With a movie like this, I think the first thing that has to be discussed is the comedy, since that's the main selling point and what experiencing this is all about. I can confirm that yes, this will be a make or break deal for most. With the way that it unapologetically leans hard on the raunchiness and the shock value, this will have the viewer either go all in to see how far will the film push itself with the kind of nasty gags that it gets away with, or completely disgusted with how it goes to the extreme with its humor to the point that it is just a few steps away from being fetishy porn. In fact, the movie warns its audience about how it will be with the opening, where Bull was getting it on with Grandma's leg, but then gets chased around as he looks for anything to finish the job.
How many times have I told you to stop, Nana?
Having trouble running? Still gotta finish here. Oh, yeah.
So, at this point, if you know that you could get into that kind of comedy or not, then you've already figured out if this movie is worth your time. As for me, I consider myself someone who's okay with it, as long as it is well executed. And in the case of Fixed, I find the humor to be hit and miss. I'll confess that, yes, there were some dirty jokes that I did laugh at due to its ridiculous nature. But at the same time, there were also a bunch that the timing didn't hit right, or they feel like they're just for the shock factor without much of a purpose. Not to mention that some are the same kind of gags that you typically find in adult animated comedies, like dealing with sex workers, getting high, and being suddenly gory. However, what I find to be the most effective jokes are when they comment about a dog's life with the sensibilities of an adult cartoon, poking fun at the purebreds at dog shows, their domesticated mindset, their rivalry with cats, and how they live with or without their balls. So, from my experience, the raunchiness can get a bit stale and it's not the best at timing, but it does have a variety of jokes where it can occasionally deliver some surprises and provide some spots that can make me laugh.
Bull? Honey, this is not that.
What do you call it?
I don't know what to call it, but it isn't sex.
But you know what the most shocking thing about this movie is? When you take away all the sex, the balls, the assholes, the shits, the pits, and all those kinds of nastiness, the film is actually very tame. I mean, when you look into the core of the story, it's about a dog and his friends trying to live life to the fullest, accompanied by a message of how being different is a good thing, and that your uniqueness and imperfections are the key to your charm. I'll give the feature credit that this does give itself a good heart that helps to get engaged with the characters in their journey and shows how there could be more to this than the sex. At the very least, I appreciate that it did develop some kind of emotional core. Then again, it also emphasizes how it doesn't take advantage of its own R rating. I know it sounds weird, but let's contrast this to Sausage Party. It's not rated R just because of the horny food, But its themes and commentary are also mature and sophisticated, where it discusses about religion in a way that wouldn't be able to get away with if it were PG, especially with the criticism towards it that makes the film additionally thought-provoking. The only reason why Fix got the R is because of the gags. It doesn't try to make this feel like a mature picture beyond the comedy. It's more like a typical family film with a license to be as dirty as possible with its humor.
All right. Break it up. It's the same ass as yesterday.
For what it did on its own, the story is not horrible. It's not impossible for the feature to be funny, and the heart does give it something outside of the laughs to get a bit invested in the adventure. But as an R-rated comedy, it's pretty weak with how it's dependent on the novelty that this one is animated, and does a lot of the typical adult jokes thinking that doing them in a cartoon is somehow new. Even before Bull lost his balls, the story got noticeably neutered. The animation. I know that not everyone says this, but I find it weird when people complain that the animation here looks ugly, and it's part of what detracts them from the picture. Sure, to each their own, but this is to be expected from Sony Pictures Animation, especially when Genndy Tartakovsky takes the helm. Yes, their style has drastically changed since Into the Spider-Verse, but my point is that other than the fact that it's in 2D, the animation is about the same as their earlier works like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Hotel Transylvania, putting more emphasis on its cartoony nature and be as over the top with it to deliver a high amount of energy. Then again, I won't take away your opinion on it, but if you're gonna call this animation bad, then it's only fair to say that these also look terrible for doing the same thing.
Oh, look, it's Rocco, the ballless wonder.
But while I may not be a fan of the style in those films, I find that it works much better in 2D. I'll even say that I was surprised to see how the animation here is well done. Of course, as a comedic Tartakovsky project, the designs are more abstract so that they can let out their cartoony side. They're meant to have the dogs be wildly expressive and go all out with their poses and faces to help sell the jokes in a big way. An aspect that was inspired by the Looney Tunes cartoons of Chuck Jones and Tex Avery. As for the character animation, it is very smooth. It found the middle ground of keeping the dogs anatomically correct so that they could physically behave like dogs, but still be animated for their expressions to be clear. And through all of that, their movements are fluid, where it does look odd at first to see these Hanna-Barbera-like designs move in a way that isn't limited, but there is some admirable craftsmanship that can be found here, even when they're used in a way that is often very crude.
That's a skunk! Ah, it hurts so good!
In terms of its visual aesthetic, I'll give it that it's one of the movie's stronger assets. However, there is one big problem that I have with its style, and that is how it barely has one. Outside of the dog's designs and the adult humor, it's a very plain-looking film where all you see is a bunch of pets going around a typical suburban neighborhood and a big city. Sure, the backgrounds and what the characters do within are nicely done, but they're built in a way that is forgettably generic and does nothing to have the viewer feel immersed in this world where we see everything through the dog's perspective. This would have greatly benefited if it made the environments as stylized as the designs to give more emphasis on its cartooniness like one of its other inspirations, Disney's 101 Dalmatians, or do more with its concept of an R-rated animated dog comedy and get creative with the kind of secret life that they have where they can indulge in their instincts. The only time that it ever does that is with the dog house, just to make some gags of how they would perform in a strip show.
Here's a toast to the baddies.
Even when going back to the designs, the most that it does there is animate a wide variety of dog breeds. This is why the animation is another aspect of how its dependency of its raunchy comedy can be a serious detriment. As much as it loves to go crazy with its disgustingness, and play around with nutsacks to the point of going surrealistic and turn Bull's balls into their own characters, it's visually and conceptually one of the blandest ideas for an animated film. Even The Secret Life of Pets, a movie that is very similar but aimed primarily for kids, is able to establish a stronger style and a better immersive feel by going around New York City. Fixed, on the other hand, got overconfident that just because it's a hand-drawn film and its humor is geared towards adults, those would be enough to make this stand out and be considered unique. But in actuality, it's easy to look through the novelty and notice how there is an alarming lack of creativity that can be found here.
The window of nothingness.
I want to clarify that I don't think that this is full-on bad animation. The work that was done here is solid, and it does well to take advantage of the 2D medium to create a crazy comedy. The only catch is that the concepts are unimpressive, and when looking past their hormones, it's just a dull and unmemorable domestic dog cartoon. Some say that this is style over substance, but this animation having a style is honestly debatable. The characters. If there is anything that can salvage this movie from being hopeless, it's the dogs themselves. Like I said before, it does have the time to set its own horniness aside to create an emotional core so that the audience can care about who these characters are and what they're personally going through. Do they have the strongest personalities? Obviously not. This is still a dumb adult comedy that prioritizes its humor after all. So there is a limitation to how complex they can be. However, what I consider to be the film's strongest asset is the voice acting. These actors completely understood the kind of feature that they were working on, and matched the kind of energy and goofiness that the film demanded to make the most out of the materials that they were working with, and let their personalities shine onto their roles. While they're all great, my personal favorites in this are Idris Elba as Rocco, Kathryn Hahn as Honey, and Adam Devine as Bull.
Hey, Bull.
Honey, what's up, girl?
How's Nana?
Nana? Who cares about Nana?
Your pinky dinky is out.
But as much as the actors were carrying this whole picture, the characters themselves can only at best supply a bit of charisma, which admittedly is more than what I could say about the film's other elements. Starting with the main canine, Bull is proud of his libido and what he could do with his balls. But when he learned that he was going to get neutered, he felt like the comfortable life that he knew was going to be over and faces the personal regrets of what he didn't have time to accomplish with his nuts, including expressing his true feelings to the dog next door, Honey, despite feeling like she's out of his league with the way that he's just an ordinary mutt.
I guess that's it. Time to go home and face the hatchet.
Speaking of that love interest, Honey is a purebred whose schedule is often busy with prepping up for the dog show. However, when she does have free time, she spends it on trying to connect with Bull, since she does have a crush on him and would rather sacrifice the glamorous pure life just to be with him. But then there's Sterling, another show dog who has a huge ego and is completely narcissistic, where he just wants to be with Honey so that he could breed with the best and that his puppies come out the best with his genes. As for Bull's buddies, there's Rocco, the tough boxer who has personal insecurities of never sucking on his mother's teat when he was a pup, Fetch, who acts like a human superstar because his owner dresses him up for his hundreds of followers on Instagram, and Lucky, a beagle who's trying to get into some freaky fetishes to find himself.
I meant we're just going along for the ride as you enjoy your before you lose them.
And for the rest, despite the large number of animals and people featured, their purpose is to either fill the gap to supply some context like the owners, be an obstacle for a scene like the cats, or provide their one gag like the rest of the dogs. The only two exceptions here are Frankie, whom Lucky later falls in love with, and Luther, who was the first to warn the dogs about the signs of when their owners will be neutering them.
I came home after the park, and there was a party. It was crazy. No rules.
With a comedy like this, most of the characters are only as good as the jokes they deliver, which can lead to some very mixed results. But thanks to the voice acting, the main dogs are able to present themselves to be more than a bag of stupid sex jokes who keep saying swears like and f***. Since they're also responsible for carrying the film's heart, they help represent the importance of individuality and that your personality is more valuable to have than whatever baggage you may possess, whether they be physically or mentally. And in that case, even when their roles are basic and not everyone will be a fan of these pervy dogs, they do have a bit of charm to show that they just want to live life to the fullest like everyone else. Whether if they have their balls or not, the characters do have the talent to make this picture somewhat enjoyable. So, now that I've seen the whole movie and got a better idea of what it's like to experience it, is it that terrible to the point of deserving all that hate? At least in my opinion, absolutely not. I mean, I wouldn't call it good, but this is not the disaster that the internet expected it to be. Fixed is nothing more than a novelty movie. A simple feature mainly meant to provide a big load of R-rated raunchy humor. Outside of that, there's not much else that the film offers, especially when you look past its crude humor and what's left is mostly a bland talking pets cartoon. Are there any good things to say about this? Sure. It has a cute message about individuality, the character animation is surprisingly good, the voice acting is great, and if it doesn't sicken you, then there can be some jokes that are funny. It's pretty much if you take The Secret Life of Pets and give it the comedy of Sausage Party. Even by the standards of Sony Pictures Animation, it's not as unwatchably disastrous as the Emoji Movie or Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, but in terms of its quality, I think it's just slightly above the Hotel Transylvania films and the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And as I've stated before, what will determine if you like it or not all depends on how much you tolerate dirty adult humor. If that's not your style, then you will hate the movie and may not be able to finish it in one sitting. But if you enjoy that type of comedy, then you'll most likely have a fun time seeing how far they'll go with the gags. And if you had a fun time with this video, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. You can also join my Patreon where you could find an exclusive, uncensored version of this review. As much as this will have its detractors who will frame this as a cinematic disaster, like you'd commonly find in the titles for YouTube videos nowadays, I also know that there is an audience who wants a stupid, dirty comedy like this. In fact, I know there is because I actually witnessed that for myself. As for me, I guess I'm not really on either side. It may try to be shocking and provocative, but I just don't feel like I should let out some strong emotions over the cartoon dog movie.
Me.